let's hop into it. I honestly have missed you, Kevin, for a number of reasons, mostly because you haven't had a chance to gloat about your boy reclaiming the top of the World Drivers' Championship standings. I want to get your first impression of that before we really do hop into what's going on post-Brazil. But your feelings right now as this whirlwind of results has come your way.
I'm taking a slight pause because this is the second year that we've done this podcast. This is the first year we've done it streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And this year there's definitely, I can be better and I can pay attention more and I can do more on my research and different things to that effect. But this year more than ever, I've been more in tune with Formula One, tried to watch as much as I can and diagnose everything that's happening off the track as well. And I say all that to say this: the Formula One season is long, very, 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 very long. We talk about different sports. We talk about 162 games of baseball, 82 games in hockey. You got 17 weeks in a season for NFL.
And that's just the regular season. Yeah.
Right. The Formula One season calendar is very, very long because I remember sitting there and having off-air conversations with Tristan about this thing is as good as done. I mean, this thing's Oscars all the way. And I peek behind the curtain. I would, not to put words in your mouth, but I would say Tristan was starting to kind of feel the same way as how could he not win it? How could Oscar not win it? All the momentum is going his way. He's on an absolute win streak right now. And it just seemed like all signs were pointing to Oscar. And here we are recording November 12th. Lando has a, dare I say, not a commanding lead, but he has a comfortable-ish lead in the World Drivers' Championship. It's him, it's Oscar Piastri, and Mr. Inevitable, Max Verstappen, in the race. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but now the fight for P2 might not even be worth conversation anymore. It's just wild how long this season is. And it's nice because it's never really over, right? Like, I'm a Lando Norris guy. I love McLaren. It doesn't mean I don't love Oscar Piastri. It doesn't mean I get pissed off whenever he wins. I'm a little bit more happy when Lando wins. That's my guy. And I went through a lot of different emotions this year about, is he going to win it? Is he not going to win it? Can he get clutch? Can he be clutch? Can he do it? And it just seemed like time after time after time, it was like, he's got to do it here. Now's the chance. Okay. Now's the chance. And it just never felt like he was able to capitalize on it. It's just crazy how long this Formula One season is. And it's exciting because it always leaves the door open for the crazy and what we seem at what may seem as improbable to be probable.
Yeah, you've really hit the nail on the head here, where this thing felt over and done and wrapped up coming out of the Netherlands, right? Lando Norris DNF'd, had an oil pressure leak, something of that nature, and they had to retire the car. Opened up the door for Oscar Piastri to get, at the time, I think like a 40-point lead with less than 10 races to go. His form was looking excellent. Post summer break, he had a win that he really needed and took a commanding lead. And we showed up to that podcast, you basically in shambles. And
I was completely dejected.
Look, like, victory lap, here it is. Like, I've been saying it all year. This is the decider. And here we are now, over a month removed. It's been 2 months since Oscar Piastri has been on a podium. There have been DNFs across sprint formats a couple of times now between Austin and now Brazil. The door was never fully closed, and it never remained closed. And as much as I think we all imagined it was, this season really has swung back and forth, bringing it back home now finally to what did happen in Brazil to land Norris's way. Brazil has this feeling, at least in my opinion, of this like icing on a cake kind of weekend for Lando, who's now earned back-to-back wins between Mexico and Brazil. He's tied Oscar in wins on the season, has a 24-point lead. And Oscar has just, I mean, dare I say it, he's choked this thing away, man. It's been a choke job for what my friends who have watched this sport for 20 plus years have called a choking of the century. Like, this is one of the biggest fumbles in Formula One history generally. And across sports, I couldn't imagine something this crazy happening. You know, the NFL, we're both big NFL fans. The NFL is such a week-to-week sport. Anything can kind of happen on a Sunday. You know, anything can happen in one game. The benefit of a Formula One season is it's not all over in one spot. It's over the course of a full year. Your results do not define you just on one weekend. And that so much has really felt true. Like the gap to Max Verstappen now, the title has continued to slip further away from him, whether his performances have been stellar or not. Talking about what he needed to do, he really needed to win pretty much every single Sunday. Max didn't win on Sunday. It was Lando Norris's day. It was Lando Norris's weekend.
I'll say this much. If Max didn't have the issues he had in qualifying, the surge he had on race day, I would have been terrified if he didn't have to start for the pit lane.
But look, things went the way they went, right? They tossed a new engine in the Red Bull. They turned it up to 110% and said, go hunting, right? He had the opportunity anyway to be the first driver to go from pit lane to P1 and still finish P3. A remarkable day for him. But Lando dominated the weekend. He had the fastest time in free practice, topped the times in sprint qualifying, won the sprint, topped the times in qualifying, and then held on to win a very messy Grand Prix Sunday.
So multiple restarts. Multiple restarts for Lando too.
Yeah, so, you know, I wouldn't even call it mixed conditions. There was just a lot going on track, as there almost always is in Brazil. The question really is at this point, though, with only 3 Grand Prix Sundays left between Vegas, between Qatar, between Abu Dhabi, is this thing over? Is this thing done? I mean, I know we can't technically say that, but like, is there that feeling of, man, I don't think it's gonna go back the other way. The momentum has swung.
Oscar Piastri wins next week. Lando DNFs. No, this thing's not over. I still can't feel comfortable with somebody who made me feel uncomfortable about being clutch.
I can understand that.
Simply put, it's not over until it's over with this group of 3. Mm-hmm. Max is inevitable. He can do anything. He can do the things that no one else can do. Oscar can wake up and put together a phenomenal weekend when Lando performs poorly, or Lando could just shut the door entirely and put this thing away. All 3 of those are possible.
I mean, one Lando DNF really does leave this door way the hell open.
Yep.
I saw a chart recently that really illustrated Max, though, and this is why I kind of am pulling Max out of the conversation. And it's not because he isn't stellar, but for him to win the world championship from right now, he would need to win in Las Vegas, the Qatar Sprint, the Qatar GP, and then Abu Dhabi. Now it's Max freaking Verstappen. We can't count him out. But with all of that, he would need Lando to have a DNF, only score 4 points in the sprint in Qatar, 12 points during the Qatar GP Sunday, and then only land 18 points in Abu Dhabi. And then Piastri could theoretically tie with an 18-7, 18, and 15 performance in those 4 weekends. That would give Max the win on the World Championship with the most Grand Prix Sunday wins. He'd have 8 to Oscar and Norris's 7. Just to show and illustrate how thin of a margin it's going to have to be for Max at this stage. Not impossible, of course, but it is very, very, very unlikely. As far as Oscar, though, I don't know, man. I think that he's kind of left it open. He's left this for Lando to basically pick up and run with. And Lando's doing the job that arguably he should have been doing all year, in my opinion.
That's fair.
Three Grand Prix Sundays left, Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. It feels like the tide just hasn't turned towards his favor, but it feels like there's a wave that has gone in his direction. There was a long period of time this season where it seemed like a foregone conclusion that it was Oscar's, and Lando had made those mistakes, but Oscar's mistakes down this stretch have been ever more costly. The door's been left open. And not to count chickens before they hatch, but the rest of the way, Lando, all he needs to do is basically finish on the podium in the best car from this entire season that is destroying the constructors, and it's basically over. Max needed a win on Sunday, and he failed to do that. With all due respect to what Max was able to do, made me sweat, the Mercedes fan, but and Piastri didn't even sniff the podium because he had a 10-second penalty, dropping him from P4 back to P5 after, the mistake that he made going up the inside. Look, I think I would agree with Julian Palmer that it was a racing incident. Maybe he didn't deserve the 10-second penalty, but the way the rules are the way they are. And they're very clearly defined about leading apex, blah, blah, blah.
Can we put a pause on this? Because king of conspiracies, king of theoreticals here. Theoretically, what does that race look like if Oscar Piastri doesn't have a 10-second time penalty?
I think if he doesn't have a 10-second time penalty, I don't know that Max still wins. I don't think Max wins the race, for one thing. I think that he's fighting with Oscar maybe for P3. I think Kimi's still a factor, and I would argue he probably still lands on the podium at some level because Kimi had a really, really strong weekend, which we will talk about here in a few moments. But I think it's still for Oscar a fight for P3. He had a P4 start, if I'm not mistaken, off the line on Sunday. Max was charging through the field. It would have been him fighting up Max down the stretch, at least in my opinion. If there was no 10-second penalty during the incident, actually, wait, now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, this would have changed a lot of things because Oscar made up the place on that pass with that move, and he would have finished theoretically P2, or he would have had a chance to go chase Lando. So maybe Max is fighting Kimi for P3, but it would have been a 1-2 finish, and this is still a little bit closer, but Lando still wins the Grand Prix. I don't think he goes and takes the race away from Lando. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, because Lando was on a different. He was way ahead.
He was flying, yeah. So Kimi still lands a podium because of the way things finished. But yeah, Oscar probably maybe gets P2, excuse me. He's fighting alongside maybe Max at some point too. You never really know how the rest of the race goes. We play the what-if game all day. But Oscar still made the mistake in qualifying. He didn't put together the right lap. He made the mistake in the sprint that to be fair, Franco Colapinto, and Gabriel Bortoleto, if I'm not mistaken, or it was one of the Saubers. I think it was him or Olkenberg. They all DNF'd. I think it was Bortoleto. He had a really rough weekend. So at the end of the day, where Oscar has needed to make up these gaps has been in qualifying. You need to start further up the grid. If you're going to take wins away from Lando, you need to do it from right next to him. It's harder to do that from a row back or 2 rows back. Oscar's made too many mistakes. You can argue that it was just kind of getting caught out in the sprint. Things happen, but at the end of the day, he can't afford those mistakes.
Yeah.
He just can't. And he's had so many of these mistakes throughout this entire Sunday, or the racing gods haven't been on his side, but the things that he can control, he has not succeeded in. Terrible qualifying in Mexico, and Lando was able to win the race by almost 30 seconds. So all I'm getting at is Oscar's performance at a certain level has been the decider here. You could argue about favoritism within the team, and there are a lot of people who will do that. But the moves that Lando has made throughout this season, at least down the stretch.
That pisses me off, by the way.
Like Singapore down, Lando has done the job that we've been screaming at him to do all season. Now that he's doing it, because he's the British driver, there's a bias, or because McLaren seemed to like him more. He's not making the mistakes that Oscar's making. He's just not. I checked my ego at the door when I started thinking about what happened in Singapore, for instance. If it's the other way around, Oscar Piastri gets praised through the heavens for being this aggressive, tough driver and taking a place from his teammate during a championship fight. Because it was the other way around, people were incredibly upset about it. You know, he needed to hand that position back because of Monza. Things are the way they are at this point. You can't
and
go
even
back
Oscar, even Oscar has come out and while we're on this topic, and you got me triggered, so good job to you. Jos Verstappen, master of stirring crap up. I almost said something I shouldn't have there. Master of stirring crap up that he has nothing to do with. Say, oh, I was Oscar. Like, you're not, first off. And even Oscar was like, look, we've got things handled over here at McLaren. There's been things that's happened to me that Lando favored from. There's been things that happened to Lando that I got favored from. At the end of the day, we're both allowed to compete. We're both allowed to drive in what is the best car on the track. And Zach Brown does not have a bias one way or another. The truth of the matter is, Lando is driver number one. He was there from the beginning of when McLaren was dog water to a point where now they've won back-to-back constructors. Sorry, I just completely blanked. Back-to-back constructors, and now they're trying to win a driver's championship. Lando was there from the start of all of that. So naturally, Zach Brown, that is his guy. That is his driver number one. But that doesn't mean that he gets pissed off when Oscar doesn't win or when Oscar wins. That was never the case. And it's not like, well, we're going to do this, that way Lando gets favored. Like that was never the case. So all of these people who are out here getting all PO'd or want to get all ticked off about Lando. Well, fine, whatever. Everybody wants to come at the guy who's all happy-go-lucky. But let's also talk about the fact that, and you've been talking about it, Oscar didn't do his job.
Yeah.
Oscar didn't do his job.
Again, talking about even from Singapore, or even going back to Monza. He played the team game in Monza. His last trip to the podium, by the way, was in Monza. He lost out in Singapore because Norris did the damn thing. It was an aggressive move. Left the door open. He DNF'd in Baku. That is Oscar Piastri's fault. No one else's fault. He made a terrible decision to go off a racing line in Baku and cost himself an opportunity to at least, gather a few more points and keep it even, or walk out of there with a bigger championship lead. He botched the United States Grand Prix in both the sprint. He had a terrible mix-up at the beginning of the sprint, but they both DNF'd. But he had a terrible qualifying. And then the race himself, he didn't do enough to beat Lando. And then had a terrible weekend in Mexico, which was on him, and has now cost himself in Brazil by having poor form when it comes down to qualifying. Look, at the end of the day, you could argue that McLaren's entire papaya rules is like the guy who starts in front, unless there's some, chicanery that happens, right? Something you can't account for, earn it, take the position off of him. But if he starts in front, he's entitled to the front. And Lando has done that. Since Singapore, he has out-qualified Oscar every step of the way. He has outperformed Oscar every step of the way. And as much as we'd like to put this all on McLaren having bias, I'm sorry, I just can't. I can't put it all on just that simple thing. I can't put it all on just that argument. I can't do the Twitter thing and just go, oh, but, they really like him more. Zach Brown's talked about not having driver ones within the team and how it's been a challenge for them at certain points, but I don't think that they're costing Oscar opportunities that he isn't necessarily costing himself. Mm-hmm. And he's left this door open. I keep using that analogy, but he's really left this door open. And then the DNF in Baku left it wide open. The choke job from Oscar has been remarkable. He's left himself up for being passed by Max for P2 in the championship at this stage. And Lando's just done his job. And he's getting the most out of the McLaren at this stage of the season. He's showing his championship potential, and he's not leaving any room for error. I am going to commend Lando. I thought this thing was wrapped up and done after the Netherlands, but that's to go full circle with your point. Nothing is ever done until it's done. And the only way I see this thing swinging back in Oscar's direction, maybe some luck going his way by the racing gods to hand Lando a DNF, but Piastri needs to win in qualifying. He needs to reclaim that 24-point gap. 3 weekends left, though. It's not something that personally I would be betting on. And I don't know what the TLPs think. I know we both want to know what the TLPs think. We spent a decent amount of time going all over the place with this first segment. But there is a lot to talk about when it comes to this championship fight. There was a lot of people's feelings within this championship fight as the season has gone on. But I want to know what the TLPs think. Is this title fight over? What do you guys think down in the comments below? I want to know what If you think that we're both full of it, if there's some other angle that we haven't addressed, I want to know what the TLPs think. And I know you do too.